Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith with my comments about Chael Sonnen's comments about Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. He did an interview with Bloody Elbow, and what he said was Michael Chandler is going to win. You have the most disciplined guy in the sport, arguably, and you have the most undisciplined guy in the sport for sure. It's one of those situations where you do this conversation, everyone's going to be lazy. Like I'm going to be right now and say Conor's got a puncher's chance if Chandler stands up with him and so forth. I don't know where you get that idea. A puncher's chance, I know it's something fun people say, but you got to go back to Michael Moore dropping the belt to George Foreman. There's no such thing as a puncher's chance. The better guy wins. He wins every single time. Michael Chandler could go out there and box with Conor at this point. You don't get better at something by not doing it. Talking about, of course, the layoff because of the injured shin and other personal distractions. We could keep going about, alleged PED use and all that fun stuff. So I understand Chael's comments about the layoff itself. I'm going to go even further and say he hasn't looked good in 8 years, or certainly hasn't looked great in 8 years. The Cowboy Cerrone fight, yes, he did beat Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy Cerrone famously underperforms in big fights. There was another case of that. He looked like a deer in headlights. But this idea that several years ago, a friend of mine said to me, he goes, man, Jack Nicholson really looks old. And I went, yeah, he is old. He is old. Right? We all think Chinatown. We think A Few Good Men, right? You think of all these early movies, The Shining. Yeah, those were 50 years ago, right? We have a picture in our head of what someone is, right? And we kind of freeze it there. A celebrity, an athlete, whatever. And we freeze them kind of in that photo. And it's not accurate. It doesn't age, right? You don't look at what they're doing now. If you honestly look at it, yes, Chael is right about the layoff being a huge factor. He doesn't get into the injury at all, though we've never seen someone bounce back from a shattered shin and be a shadow of the fighter they were. But it's beyond that. It's even if you take out the layoff, his performances since Eddie Alvarez haven't been great. Good at best. Not the guy we saw, hands behind his back against Eddie Alvarez, knocking out Jose Aldo with one punch. We haven't seen that guy in a long time. Does that guy beat Michael Chandler? Probably. But it's the idea that that guy hasn't been there for a long time. And a lot of fans, a lot of people, of course, trash Conor fans, whatever. A lot of fans, period, just don't acknowledge that he has lost 3 out of his last 4 in MMA. And in those fights, he's looked good, but not the dynamic presence that we saw early on in his career. Why? The whole puncher's chance thing implies he has a power advantage over Michael Chandler. I don't think he has a power advantage over Michael Chandler. Mike hits very, very hard. I don't think it's a physical power advantage. I don't believe that Conor McGregor is that heavy-handed. There are guys out there, even in his weight class, who hit much harder. His placement is very, very good. And that's an important distinction if you're breaking down how this fight's going to go. Because a guy who places a shot very, very well, which is what he's very good at, is timing and placement, none of that ages well. It doesn't. As he referenced, Chael, Michael Moore versus George Foreman. George Foreman's 45, but power doesn't go away, right? Heavyweights can still hit hard, right? Now, George Foreman's timing wasn't what it used to be. His activity wasn't what it used to be. His accuracy wasn't what it used to be. And if he had relied on all those things, he does not win a heavyweight title at 45 years old. And people mistake Conor's power for, his knockout ability with power. It's not. He can knock you out, but it's not power. It's his ability to place a shot perfectly. It's like a whip. He nails you at exactly the right place and keeps you right at the end of his punches, right? Tommy Hearns' right hand, right? Probably my favorite boxer of all time. He hit you in the perfect spot. It wasn't like a natural anywhere he hit you, he hurt you. It didn't work that way. He hit you at the end of his punch. Emmanuel Stewart taught him how to throw and turnover punch perfectly. Same thing with Conor. The problem is the more time off and the less you fight, the more those skills go away. I saw a real decline in Fedor Emelianenko after Pride because Pride kept him so busy. A guy like him who committed to every single punch, that timing, you need to fight a lot to keep that timing going. And Conor has not been active enough. And when he has been active, we've seen the difficulties he has had. And if you look at it, you put it on a graph of his performances, it kind of go, all right. And then the last one against Dustin Poirier, he didn't look good at all. He got housed that whole fight before he shattered his shin. So this idea that Conor's going to look like the Conor of old is something psychologically people aren't willing to let go. Conor doesn't fight like he used to. He hasn't fought like that in a long time. So I think that is a very, very important distinction. We're also talking about the shin. We're also talking about the personal issues, the probably lack of discipline that we've seen in the last few years, which Chael did reference. But I think it's more about the performances that we've seen leading up to all that. The other side of the coin is Mike, and people are going to get mad at this, and it just is what it is. Mike just is one of those guys who has a one-size-fits-all fight style. He goes out there, he throws a bunch of punches in the beginning, he burns a ton of gas in the first 2 rounds, and either he knocks you out or he has to hold on to win. That's Mike, every single time. And the difficulty is Mike fights like a guy who is beginning his career, who then gets a little more technique and a little more relaxation and a little more flow and then fights differently. Mike never really got past that like tense, strong first year in the gym trying to knock everybody out. Mike never really got past that. He fights like he did when I first saw him in Bellator years ago. When he first beat Eddie Alvarez, we went, man, this guy could really be amazing. He's really good now. He could be really amazing. And it was like he never added enough to his arsenal. I'm not saying he didn't get better. I'm just saying he still fought with the same, early 20s dynamo kid energy. And most fighters at a certain point realize that physical blasting kind of style, you're not going to get all the way to the top, right? Running back, running through the line every single time is going to have a short career. You just can't run into guys. In the beginning, you can knock some guys over, but you're not going to have a long career unless you learn to get out of the way of some tackles. And like Mike is the running back who never learned to break the tackle. He just runs through guys. So what people see who are picking Conor McGregor, and I'll do a more tactical breakdown as the fight gets closer, is prime Conor McGregor would find the openings in a prime Michael Chandler, because Mike does throw very, very wide. He does tend to explode into things. He can run into a lot of punches. His defense is suspect. His gas is suspect. Normally a veteran like Conor McGregor, who's an accurate, placement of his strikes kind of guy, could take advantage of Michael Chandler. I don't think that's the kind of Conor McGregor we're going to see. So I think that's really the issue, is people go, oh, the Conor McGregor I think of versus the Michael Chandler that I think of, Conor beats that guy. But you're thinking about a Conor McGregor who is a seriously diminished force considering what he used to be. Also, this is happening at 170 pounds. The key to me of the first Diaz fight, which remember was at 170, is the shots that Conor would use to drop 45ers didn't work against a natural big 55er with that extra hydration at 170 pounds. One of the things about cutting weight, it does affect your chin. You are dehydrating yourself. And so your chin does get affected by a bad weight cut. Michael Chandler is thick. He's strong. He's not welterweight sized. He's not. But neither was Nick. And I'm sorry, Nate. When you look at a big 55er who doesn't have to cut down, doesn't have to shred very much, he's going to have a decent chin. Not that Mike generally has a bad chin. It's that the extra weight cut takes something away from you. When Conor fought Nate the first time, and he hit him with punches that would drop a 45er, and they didn't drop Nate, that's when the fight turned to me. It wasn't necessarily when it went to the ground. By the time it went to the ground, Conor was already exhausted. He was used to bang, 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 and either finishing someone or hurting them badly enough that they have to back off and give me a break. Bang, bang, bang. The person's got to, back off a little bit, and I can breathe. He hit Nate. Nate just kept coming. And I think he wasn't ready for that kind of fight. He wasn't prepared physically for that kind of a fight, and that affected him. There might be a similar thing here with Chandler, where, Conor McGregor's ability to knock people out, it goes down when you move up in weight class. He's going up 2 weight classes, essentially, from 45, where he had all his knockouts. And the idea that a well-hydrated Michael Chandler is going to go down on the first shot, I don't believe that either. Even if he does get through and hurts Mike, he's going to have to put the pressure on, and that's when all the things Chael was talking about in terms of lack of discipline and time off, that's when all those things start catching up to you. The longer the fight goes, the less you can hide from yourself, right? Greatness shows over time. So it's the idea that, you have 2 football teams and one's better than the other. Man, the first 10 minutes, maybe you don't know that. But over the course of the whole game, you start going, oh, okay, this team's better. So weaknesses get exposed the longer a fight goes on. And the nature of this fight taking place at 170 pounds Conor McGregor isn't going to be able to have the quick victories that, early on his career, I think masked certain things. I think Conor always had a trouble with not his gas necessarily, but pacing. Just like Michael Chandler does, for sure. Where Conor would explode, bing, 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 and then he'd need a rest. And the fighters that wouldn't let him rest, Khabib and Nate and those guys, exposed those weaknesses. Remember, he won the first round against Dustin Poirier, but Poirier wouldn't go away, and in the second round we saw a Conor McGregor who doesn't always know how to keep pressure on and save his gas. He just knows how to explode and spurt. He just knows how to attack in spurts. And once he does that, he needs a little break. And when he does that, he needs a little break. And that's hard to do against guys who constantly keep physical pressure, like Khabib, like Nate, like Dustin Poirier, like Michael Chandler might do. So I think Chael is right about favoring Michael Chandler. I do definitely favor Michael Chandler in the fight right now as I'm looking at it. But I think more than the layoff this time around is the fact that Conor McGregor has not been the accurate, devastating striker that we saw beat Eddie Alvarez since the Eddie Alvarez fight 8 years ago. So I think the idea that we need an update and that Conor's inactivity has kept us from getting that mental update. We kind of just think about the Conor we used to know rather than the Conor we saw last time. The Conor we saw last time is the guys that's actually stepping in the octagon next month. Keep that all in mind. Like, subscribe, let me know what you think.